February 4th marks World Cancer Day, a global initiative aimed at raising awareness, educating the public, and advocating for action to reduce the global impact of cancer. The day serves as a reminder that while cancer remains a significant health challenge, global collaboration can lead to better prevention, improved treatment, and ultimately more lives saved. Cancer is a leading cause of death worldwide, responsible for nearly 10 million deaths annually. World Cancer Day is an opportunity to unite communities, share knowledge, and raise a collective voice in the fight against this devastating disease. What is cancer? Cancer is a group of diseases characterized by abnormal cell growth that can spread to other parts of the body. These uncontrolled cell divisions lead to the formation of tumors or malignancies. There are over 100 different types of cancer affecting organs like the lungs, breast, skin, and more. Some of the most common forms of cancer include lungs cancer, the most prevalent type of cancer globally, often linked to smoking and environmental factors. Lungs cancer is a type of cancer that begins in the lungs, which are two spongy organs located in the chest responsible for oxygenating the blood. It occurs when abnormal cells in the lungs grow uncontrollably and form tumors. These abnormal cells can spread to other parts of the body. The American Cancer Society's estimates for lungs cancer in the US for 2025 are about 226,650 new cases of lungs cancer in both men and women, about 124,730 deaths from lungs cancer, that is 64,190 in men and 60,540 in women. Breast cancer, the leading cause of cancer in women worldwide. Breast cancer is a disease in which abnormal breast cells grow out of control and form tumors. If left unchecked, the tumors can spread throughout the body and become fatal. In 2022, there were 2.3 million women diagnosed with breast cancer and 670 deaths globally. Breast cancer occurs in every country of the world in women at any age after puberty, but with increasing rate in later life. Prostate cancer, common in men, especially as they age. According to World Cancer Researcher Fund, there were 1,467,854 new cases of prostate cancer in 2022. Prostate cancer is the fourth most common cancer worldwide. It is the second most common cancer in men. Colorectal cancer, one of the most common cancers in both men and women, with increasing rates globally. In the United States, colorectal cancer is the third leading cause of cancer-related death in men and the fourth leading cause in women, but is the second most common cause of cancer death when numbers for men and women are combined. It is expected to cause about 52,900 deaths during 2025. Despite the advances in treatment, cancer continues to take millions of lives every year. However, early detection, prevention, and improved treatment have shown significant promise in reducing cancer impact. According to World Health Organization in 2020, there were 19.3 million new cancer cases and 9.96 million cancer deaths worldwide. The incidence rates are rising, with many developing countries seeing a surge in cancer cases due to changes in lifestyle, diets, and the aging population. This is a story of people living with cancer.
Some believe cancer doesn't happen to people who are young, healthy, and happy, but it does. My name is Drea Palmer. 19 years ago, at the age of 25, I was diagnosed with sarcoma, an aggressive malignant cancer that had grown between my index and middle fingers and was spreading to my lungs and armpit. My world was turned upside down. I was told I had just a 5% chance of living 5 years, and treatment could involve amputating the fingers on my dominant hand. I'm an artist. I worried how or if I'd be able to continue pursuing my love of painting. But first, I had to survive, and that, in itself, would require a miracle. Over the course of 2 years, I had 3 surgeries, 6 weeks of radiation, and 5 rounds of chemotherapy. And in the end, I beat the odds. I'm alive, and not only that, I didn't lose my fingers at all. I'm still able to use my hand to do what I love most. I've also had 2 children, which I was told would be highly unlikely as a result of my chemotherapy treatments. I am blessed, and meditation and visualization were keys to my recovery. I strongly believe these daily rituals, along with an optimistic attitude, strong support at home, and outstanding care teams in Calgary and
we're losing a lot of women unnecessarily, and I think we shouldn't. We can't lose women to a cancer that can be eliminated and to a cancer that can be prevented. My name is Karen Nakawala. I'm from Zambia, and I was born in a town called Chipata. I'm a cervical cancer survivor myself. So I was diagnosed in 2019 of June. My gynecologist is a friend because she delivered my last baby, and they have a hospital. So what used to happen that every time I met them, they would ask me, Karen, why are you not visiting us? We don't see you. And I'm like, I'm not sick, so I don't come to the hospital. Until one day, I get to the clinic and we joke, we laugh. So I get on the bed and she starts to examine me. And then she looks at me and then she checks again, she looks at me. And then she asks me if I'm in pain. I'm like, no. So she says, well, because you're bleeding badly. You've got a tumor, you've got a growth on your cervix. Okay. So she says, let's do a pap smear and come back after 7 days. So I went back home and then she calls me after 7 days. She asked if I could go to her office. I'm like, no, just tell me over the phone. And then she says, no, you have to come in. So I went there and she says to me, look, the results show that the recommendation is we do a biopsy. And so I asked her, I said, look, honestly, just tell me, what is it? And she says, look, from what I see, it could be cancer. So I was driving back home, I remember, and suddenly it hit me, cancer. This means that I'm dying, and I parked the car on the roadside. It was about 7 p.m. And the first thing that came to my mind was my children. I'm going to die and my children are going to remain alone. And I broke down. I remember I broke down for the longest time. For 3 days, I didn't sleep straight. Like I would wake up literally to see the sunrise, sunset for 3 days. The treatment is very harsh and it takes a lot from you. Even the strongest person, I think at some point, you literally give in to the treatment. And so to get out of that, I think I'm very lucky to be here because there are a lot of women that I saw that died during my journey. And just that alone, when you go, we sort of formed a sisterhood. So every morning we'll ask, are you already at the hospital? Yes, I am. And then you get there and then you ask about the other ones. Oh no, she died last night. And the mood just changes. Everybody just thinks, okay, next is going to be me. I decided to start the Facebook movement in 2020. As I was talking to the women, I realized that there was a lot of stigma attached to cervical cancer for obvious reasons. In Africa, it's taboo to talk about anything that involves your sexuality. There was a lot of myths and misconceptions. When I decided to now register it as a foundation, and I started reading more about it, attending a lot of conferences, I now realize that if we are to eliminate cervical cancer, the HPV is the one sure tool that we have to do it. So the HPV in Zambia was rolled out in 2013. When I started talking to the doctors, they told me that it was met with a lot of resistance. One, because people did not believe in the vaccine, and two, because of what the vaccine was related to, cervical cancer and, the sexual part of it. And so that is when we decided, you know what? Yes, we're doing the screening, we're doing the awareness, we're creating demand for people to go and get screening. But I think our fight is trying to get the HPV rolled out successfully and getting the girls that are eligible to get vaccinated. We're losing a lot of women unnecessarily, and I think we shouldn't. We can't lose women to a cancer that can be eliminated and to a cancer that can be prevented. And that is where the HPV vaccine comes in. And we need to push for that to be received by the masses so that they can get their girls vaccinated.
With basic, what exactly is this cancer, and when did cancer become so prevalent in Africa?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So cancer basically is the growth of malignant cells. And when I say malignant cells, I mean cells that do not follow the usual pattern in the body. So basically, the cycle of life, you have a cell growing or you have a cell of produced. It lives for a certain period of time, and after a designated period, it dies. But the thing with malignant cells is that they don't follow the usual cycle of life. They don't follow the pattern. They tend to, immortalize and live longer than the usual period of time. And in the process of that, they begin to undergo certain mutations that do not just give them this immortality. It also changes their morphology. It changes the way they behave. They don't behave like their siblings, their brothers and they also love to propagate themselves and multiply at such a rapid rate that it becomes a problem. So they grow beyond the area where they're supposed to go. They begin to detach and they begin to go to distant areas. So imagine seeing liver cells in the lungs, or seeing cells that are typically seen in the prostate, in the spine. So this is typically how cancer cells behave. They are very notorious and they just like to just behave different from the others. And that is why they're bad.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the increased incidence of cancer in Nigeria, I want to believe that the reason why we are beginning to see a surge or an increase is because there are now better diagnostic tools. We now have MRIs, CT scans that can pick up, abnormal growths in the body. Histological investigations are much improved and available in Nigeria now. And as you can even get more specialized tests like genetic testing to know if you even carry a gene for cancer, and that's why it's now more prevalent. Another thing or another reason why cancers might be more prevalent now, aside from better diagnostic tools, could also be because of the change in the lifestyle. So we are moving to much more westernized kind of lifestyle, and it doesn't just show in our diet and the way we live, the lack of activities and all. It also shows in our environment. So environmental health specialists would say that the even our atmosphere there is a change. There are more plastic microplastic in our food, more plastic in the air, more pollution. Someone was making a comment the other day that if you compare pictures, archived pictures from the 80s to what you are seeing now, you see that there are now more there's now more pollution. Some of these things also affect, the rise of non-communicable diseases like cancer. So I believe these are the things that have impacted on the rise in cancers in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Now, no, I really want to be very, very down to earth with today's show because I'm just wondering, how does cancer enter through the body? Because you just mentioned diet now. So are you trying to say that one of the reasons why some people come down with cancer is because of through what they eat?
Okay, so the thing is that there are many factors to that would predispose a person to cancer, and many of the times, the major factors are genetic. Some are hereditary, some not hereditary, but it boils down to genetics. So if you carry certain genes that predisposes you to cancers, then um, you know, there might be a likelihood of that. Or if you do a family history and you realize that you have a first degree relative who has a certain kind of cancer, especially when it comes to cancers of the reproductive system, breast cancers, colorectal cancers, you might want to, be watchful yourself if you had a relative, a first degree relative, like a father, mother, aunt, uncle, sister, brother, you might want to be watchful of that. But aside from genetic predisposition, other insults from the environment, diet, your lifestyle, lack of activity can also, can also be risk factors to that. For example, um, in patients who have a risk genetically for colorectal cancers, it has also been proven that when they ingest foods that are high in nitrites, like processed meat, hot dogs, and what's the name of this other meat again? This other canned, in fact, generally, when you eat canned meat, it increases your risk for having um, colorectal cancer. Or let's say women who carry the gene for breast cancer, smoking, which is which has been implicated in a lot of cancers. When you add smoking to that risk, that genetic risk, it multiplies your chances of coming down with breast cancer. Alcohol is another very known injurious risk factor that increases people's risk for cancers. So if you are someone who binge drinks and all of that, your chances for having liver cancer is much more higher than the rest of the general population. So these are some of the, you know, harmful ways that we ourselves will injure our body and predispose ourselves to cancer. Um, um, I've just mentioned a few. I've mentioned diet, lifestyle, that's smoking, alcohol use. Um,
She was actually listing all the risk factors of cancer, and trust me, when you say you've given your life to Christ right now, hey, there's so many things I'm going to cross off my my personal bucket list, because I know I've heard it before, but then I didn't know it was that serious. I don't know about you, but I'm very particular about today's show, because when I looked at the statistics of people down with cancer, and to even think that you can get cancer from eating a wrong food, trust me, that is scary. One of the risk factors that she mentioned was diet. So you have to pay attention to what you're eating. It's not about how, it's not about your cravings, it's about what is right. So you have to be very, very intentional. One of the things she mentioned was meat. So if you know that you have a history of cancer in your family, you should avoid certain kind of meat. I don't care how crazy or how high your cravings for is for meat. You have to be very, very intentional just so you live long, because trust me, you do not want to come down with this disease. I don't know, Dr. Fiok, are you still here with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so let's talk about what are the most common types of cancer that we have in Nigeria. The most common types of cancer in Nigeria today.
Okay, so
But yeah, today on today's show we are talking about cancer, and we are very, very intentional today because on Wednesday was World Cancer Day. Where we get to reach out to people who have cancer and tell them, look, it's not the end of the world. If you just watch the special report that we played earlier, it talked about a woman who, when she first discovered cancer, when she first discovered that she had cancer, the first thing that came to her mind was, what about my children? What about my family? Does it mean I'm going to die? And guess what? She survived. In other words, there are things that you have to do in order to stay healthy. And on today's show, we are being joined with Dr. Ifyo Kobasi. Hello, Ma.
yes, I'm okay.
Okay, so what are the most common types of cancer that we have presently in Nigeria?
Okay, so we have commonly lung cancers, breast cancers, seen more in women, which is the most common type of cancers you see in women. Cancer of the prostate, which you see is the most common cancer seen in men. Then cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, liver cancers, colorectal cancers. So these are the commonest cancers that you would hear or see in most patients who are being diagnosed with cancers. Yes. There are other rarer, not as common cancers like brain cancers, cancers to the skin related cancers, especially in patients, especially in albino, individuals. These are also some of the cancers that we would see in typical Nigerian hospital. But yeah, I'll just leave it at this.
Okay, so different cancers will present in different ways. So, lung cancer, the patient could be coughing and not just coughing out blood, or the patient could be having chest pain. Breast cancer, there could be changes in the breast. Ovarian cancer, there could be bleeding per vagina and deep pelvic pain. However, in all cancer patients, there are some things that are that are common. There are some symptoms that cut across all cancers. One of which is unexplained weight loss of a certain significance. So the patient would lose weight unintentionally within a short period of time, about 10% or more of their total body weight within the last 5 months. And it would be so obvious that everybody would be like, oh, you've really lost a lot of weight in such a short time. Another thing is that they tend to have sweats, like night sweats. So these patients would be uncomfortable at night, would complain of having of sweating. For some of them, too, they could also, aside from weight loss, unexplained weight loss, and night sweats, for a lot of them, they could also present with metastasis, like signs of spread to other organs. So they could be having abdominal distension, yellowness of the eyes, they could be having low waist pain, pain in the thighs, swelling in the legs, um, you know, just feeling of malaise, feeling weak all the time, generalized weakness and tiredness, constant fatigue. These are some of the things that they would notice, aside from the symptoms that are specific to the organ that the cancer is at. So they would have a lot of complaints. But one thing to note is just that they might experience weight loss, sweating at night, and signs of spread to other organs.
My God. Thank you so much. I mean, those symptoms are quite scary a little bit because
Well, this
yeah, continue. Okay. Those symptoms are quite scary. You know, she talked about weight loss. She talked about sweating. She talked about coughing and all. But I know that these things are, see, one of the things that we emphasize on well-being is when we talk about the symptoms, don't be scared because if these things are detected on time, it could be controlled. I think one of the reasons why the Africans are literally, really harmed with cancer is because we tend to, take for granted these symptoms that, Dr. Ifeok Obasi just listed until when it gets to that stage where you can no longer, control it yourself. But then again, I want to ask Dr. Ifeok Obasi a question. Hello, Dr. Ifeok, right? Do you think, in your years of experience, what are the misconceptions about cancer that you have heard? And also, do you think that cancer and witchcraft are in any way connected together?
Yes, thank you for your question. I've heard about so many myths and misconceptions on cancers, and it's mostly due to a lack of awareness and poor health education in our society. So, compared to the Western world, where there are more information readily available in hospitals, as written pamphlets on social media, on TV and radio stations. We don't have that kind of, heavy awareness, programs available on cancers, especially cancers that, nobody has decided to pick up and make their own. Maybe, for example, now we can say that there is a lot of information on breast cancer
Yes.
and cervical cancers, but there's even with the heavy information, both online and offline, we still see a lot of people, coming with statements like, "Oh, it's due to poor folk, village
Oh,
people. Somebody is targeting me.
true.
It's an act of witchcraft and all of that." But I'm just here to say that if more people are more intentional and more aware of cancers, it will actually do our society a lot of good, because it means that people would go for regular screening on time, and then if there are any abnormalities on histology, they will seek for care on time as well. Because most times the thing with cancers is that if it's not detected early, it makes it harder to treat. And if it gets to a point where it's metastatic, it has spread throughout the body, it means that that patient would likely be on palliative care. That's the patient we won't be able to provide a a means for that is curative for the patient, that's going to, like, you know cure the cancer. So when it comes to spirituality, of course, holistic medicine, we love when patients are full of faith and, believe in God and, marry it with their health. But it doesn't mean that you would say because of the cancer is an act of witchcraft, you will abandon care in a facility, in a healthcare facility. No, you can marry your faith and you can marry medicine together. So I just want to put it out there: get educated, do regular screening for cancers. That you can do pap smear, mammography. Um, for men, you do regular PSA. That's, they take your blood and they check for your PSA levels. And then if you have a family history of colon cancer or colorectal cancer, you can book for colonoscopy every 2 to 3 years. So just rule that out if you have a family member that had something like that in the past. So if you do your regular screening and you believe in God and have faith, that's fine. You'll be fine.
Thank you so much for actually giving us more clarity on that, because I know that most people, I know network was a little bit on and off, but then I was sharing a story of how I went to the east, not in, yeah, to the east, and I saw a group of people who were down with a particular sickness, and all of them kept attributing it to an old woman in the village and all. Thank you so much for giving us more clarity that that cancer can actually be prevented if we go for our screening on time. But then again,
Yeah.
Dr. Fiok, do you know, I've heard that some people don't really want to go through the cancer treatment process because most times when you see a cancer person, you see them without their hair. So one day I went to a hospital, right, and I was having a conversation with a doctor, and the doctor now told me that there was a certain woman who just, passed on now, and one of the reasons was because she refused to come for the screening because she was scared of losing her hair. There are other women who don't want to go for cervical cancer screening because of the whole process of feeling that things go into their body and all. Some people even believe that they'll be this virgin in the process. Now, for people who have this mindset, how can they be helped?
Okay, so when it comes to medicine, the the thing is that while we talk to our patients, we try to educate them on, you know, why they have certain symptoms, what the disease progression would look like, if we have a confirmed diagnosis, because you cannot just tell somebody that they have cancer without confirming that they have the cancer. So after you've done all of your investigations and it is now confirmed that this patient has cancer histologically, you would want to sit them down with their loved ones, discuss with them extensively on what the disease progression of the illness looks like. There are some cancers that are much more faster than others. So you also need to emphasize if the patient has such type of cancer, or if the patient, based on histological grading, it's not looking good. You need to let them know of the prognosis and the need for timely care. So by the time you do all of that, of course, you also tell the patient that um the care is it can be it can take a lot from them physically and financially too, because cancer treatments in Nigeria are not cheap at all. They are not cheap. So you have to explain all of this to the patient, the side effects of the medications, if they are going to be on chemotherapy, the side effects of this medication, side effects of radiotherapy too, because there are some cancers that you do not just use chemotherapy to treat. You may need to do radiotherapy, and radiotherapy also has its own side effects. However, by the time you are done explaining all of these side effects to the patient, to help patients make an informed decision, you must let them know that the benefit of care would definitely outweigh the risk. You must let them know the statistics when it comes to prognosis. You must prognosticate and let them know what their chances look like if they receive care, and what it also looks like if they don't receive care. I believe that when with such a bounded information, which the patient will only have the opportunity to have if they come to the hospital and they don't believe what they hear outside. Because that's usually the problem. They meet one or two people who come and tell them fables and tales about their relatives who might even be fine though. They will just come and tell them some scooped up stories, and from there they become scared, they become afraid, without actually talking to their doctor or meeting up with their care provider before taking such decision to abscond from care. But if the patient presents to the hospital, all of these things will be discussed with them, and then they are more informed to take a decision to say, okay, I don't want the care, which of course is always the right of the patient to refuse care. But I believe that when they are better informed, they take better decisions that promote their health. So that's just the thing. Don't abscond from care if you are listening to um this the sound of my voice. Don't abscond from care. Even if it is just a suspicion, go to the hospital. Let them do all the investigations that they need to do for you, because sometimes it might not be cancer. It might just be a benign tumor that is not cancerous, and then you have you have just been cared for nothing. So let them do the necessary tests, and if it actually comes out that it is a malignancy, all of the um all of the processes to make sure that you are cancer free will be taken, and at the end you'll be better off for it. It will prolong your life and also improve the quality of life for you. So that's just it.
We are almost, our time is almost up, and it really hurts me so bad because, the conversation is just becoming interesting. But before I let you go, I have two questions, and I'm going to ask you all at once. What is the government doing to help? You just mentioned earlier that the cost of treating cancer in Nigeria is very expensive. So what is the government doing to help? And also, can cancer be prevented? I know, okay, how can cancer be prevented? And is there a cure? If somebody's down with cancer, because I've heard people come out to talk about survival stories. So if somebody's down with cancer, is there a cure? And lastly, how can cancer be prevented?
Okay. So the government is actually making efforts, and you might not really see it, but some of the vaccines that you take actually prevent cancers in the long run. So right now,
I can't believe we just lost Dr. Fiorobasi at the very, very dark minutes. Hello, Dr. Fiorobasi, are you there? Oh, God, it's so sad. And we had to lose Dr. Fiorobasi at the very, very... Okay, she's back here with us. Yeah, we can hear you.
yes. Okay. So, like I was saying before, the network stepped
Yeah.
in. The government is actually trying in to an extent, and it might not be so obvious, but some of the vaccines that are on the national program for actually are are vaccines that prevent cancers. So when you take the hepatitis B vaccine, you are in the long run prevent liver cancer. The newly rolled out papilloma vaccine prevents cervical cancer. So these two vaccines are actually um, vaccines that prevent cancers in the long run. It's a concerted effort, in the long run, and this kind of cancers. Then another thing that the government is helping with in a way is to also ensure that
I think that's all we have today on well-being. But then one of the things that she said was that there are vaccines that can actually help you. I like the fact that she emphasized the need for you to go for screening. So if you look at your body and you notice that, you are unnecessarily sweating, you are losing weight, and it's not like you are being malnourished or you are being starved or something. You notice unnecessary weakness in your body, just walk to any primary healthcare center and speak to, a healthcare professional. One of the mistakes that we do is that we tend to talk to our auntie, or we tend to go to just anywhere or roadside pharmacies, and then we get to have conversation with people who are not trained, and most times they might give you the wrong information. The government is trying everything in every best way possible to make sure that you and I are safe. And they've provided vaccines that you can take that can help prevent you from coming down with cancer. And in case you have cancer, I want you to know that it's not the end of the world. I had to play a video earlier of people who had cancer, and they actually followed the process, the due process. They went for their treatment, and at the end of the day, they were able to conquer cancer. Thank you so much for being a part of today's show. I started with a story of, a friend of mine who, both of us, we went for a medical checkup, and how much she had to spend just to get this information that I'm bringing to you in a platter of gold. Of course, that that on Spectrum TV, our everyday effort is to make sure that we keep you informed, and we also keep you abreast with trending developments happening all over the world. Thank you so much, Dr. Fiorobasi, for being a part of today's show. And that's to say that we have come to the end of today's program on well-being. Next week, we are going to talk about cholera. Yes, is that serious? Because if you're watching the news, or if you are if you're in the north parts of the country, you see how every day people are coming down with cholera cases. So what exactly is cholera, and how can it be prevented? This is what we'll be talking about on our next show on Wellbeing. Don't forget, Wellbeing is every 4:30 on Thursday. And of course, I am your anchor, Emedion James. Remember, go for screening, eat properly, and drink enough water. I love you. See you guys same time, same station. Goodbye.